Fighting along the front line continues, but Ukraine receives some fantastic news about its air defense, or in regards to its air defense when it comes to fresh acquisitions of new material. This and more in this situation report. We'll start off on the front line north of the Seversky Donetsk, the river here, mostly in Luhansk, somewhat in Kharkiv. Now, while the fighting is continuing more or less from Kupiansk down to Kreminna, we have two areas where there seems to be a concentration of Russian attacks over the last 48 hours. This is first here around the area of Kreminna, where there are a lot of attacks by the Russians, both in the Serebryanske forest as well as in the direction of Torske and the area north of it. But one other area of attacks is the Sherebets bridgehead that the Russians have built a couple of months ago, achieved. Here we have a series of fresh attacks, and they have been successful, at least to a certain degree, as we can see here. This is Serhivka, and they managed to advance to that point. If we look again, this is close to Raihorodka. Here is Serhivka. Looking at the map, they are roughly in the middle between that turn and Serhivka. So they are now roughly here, having positions here, meaning they have advanced roughly 300 meters in this area. Further south of the Seversky Donetsk, the Russian attacks are increasing, especially in the area of Bakhmut. We have more and more attacks in the northwest of Bakhmut, overall more or less from Khomove up to this area north of Orikhovo-Vasilivka. This time, while there have been numerous attacks in this area, I cannot record any change, and the Russians don't even claim some, but they have had some success southwest of Yahidne. They managed to advance further in that field here towards the direction of Khomove and Bodanivka. Further south, we have further Ukrainian attacks at Klishivka and Andreevka, some Russian counterattacks into the Ukrainian attacks, but I cannot record any change in territory here. Let's go directly down to Avdiivka. The Russians have achieved further success north of Avdiivka. They have entered the town of Stepove, or at least temporarily, as I showed you in the last situation report. But they now have also established positions along the whole tree line here down towards the coke plant on the left, on the western side of the railroad yard, and they managed to advance somewhat in the tree line forward. All in all, no big advances, but still some advances. Stepove is important for the lines of communications into Avdiivka that go more or less in this direction. Still, we should expect heavy fighting there in the future, but the situation isn't critical yet for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have attacked in the south. There are again some claims, even by the Russians, that they might have had some local successes, but I cannot really geolocalize it, so maybe the Ukrainians retook some positions here, but overall the situation hasn't seriously changed. Further south, the fighting is continuing, obviously, but I do not have any change in territory. Some claims of Ukrainian counterattacks from Staromayorsk and Uroshaine, but here again the initiative lies on the Russian side. When we go to Orikhiv area, here we have a Russian mill blogger is writing the Ukrainians have had some success in the direction of Novoprokopivka and northwest of Verbove, so more or less here and here. The Ukrainians must have advanced somewhat. The Russians themselves are showing some success close to Kopani. Here in this area, we have fresh Russian positions. There is like a triangle here, and this triangle is here. So we see them at the bottom here. So they are now here, having advanced roughly 400 meters further north in this regard here as well. The Russian mill bloggers are writing the Ukrainians try to regain the initiative here in this area in the direction of Melitopol, which would mean they claim they had the initiative in the meantime. This obviously, we don't really need to comment on this, but it shows that according to the Russian mill bloggers, the Ukrainian intensity of attacks has increased to a point that they feel they increasingly need to hand over the initiative to the Ukrainians in that area. We have some news here from Vasilivka, from the area of, Vasilivka area, which is down here. Here from Sherebianki in the direction of Piatikhatki, the Russians have achieved some successes. They were attacking viciously in the direction of Piatikhatki, and we have a Ukrainian military blogger admitting that they have reached the outskirts of town. This is still contested area, but they managed to advance in this area here and increase the area under their control. In the bridgehead over the Dnipro, the fighting is continuing. Ukraine has entered the forest here at Krinky, but the geolocalizations are really close to the tree line. So despite War Gonzo in the past saying that they managed to advance in this direction, this might have just been a couple of dozen meters. So the fighting is still in this area here. We are nowhere close to cutting the street further south here, which is a very important line of communication. The Ukrainians also managed to advance on an island northwest of Hula Pristan. Here they are also pushing forward. We see Ukrainian activity throughout the islands on the Dnipro, as we see now what their basic intention is: to gain forward positions, to then cross the Dnipro with small groups, positioning mortars there, positioning drone crews there, positioning electronic warfare crews to protect them once they cross the river. They managed to successfully do that at Krinky, and we see their attempts more or less between Krinky and the estuary where the Ukrainians try to do that. There's also Ukrainian attacks towards Poima, Piszczanivka, and Pidstepne, but I cannot record any fresh advances in this area. So the Ukrainians are still having a significant presence in this area here. Again and again, there are reports of fighting in the direction of Kosachi Lahiri, but I cannot confirm that there's a fresh bridgehead here. So we have a strong bridgehead here, including heavy weaponry. At least IFVs are on that side of the river, and we have a position here, and on these islands here as well. And this should be, I think, the Potemkin Island. Here they are also on this island. Generally, we have news from the rear area of the Russians. The Russians are now saying they shot down a Ukrainian drone at Kolomna, and it crashed into the research plant. That's the thing that I reported to you in the last situation report, where there's a research plant in the area of Moscow that was hit where there were explosions. Now at least we have the claims by the Russians that Ukrainian drones were in the area. They claim they shot one down and it fell on the area, even though it more or less sounds like a target, like it hit its target. We also have reports that further drones were hit on that other drones. Let me just check. Was Kolomna here? Or is it my mistake? No, Kolomna is here. Excuse me. Kolomna here a research plant was hit, but the other hit that I reported in the last situation report, which was directly at Moscow, in the outskirts of Moscow, that supposedly was there was drone activity there as well. The Russians report that they shot down additional Ukrainian drones over Moscow and Smolensk. We have partisan and sabotage activity. Ukrainian media are saying that it was the GUR that led to the derailment of 19 wagons in Ryazan, which is here. I reported the derailed 19 railroads to you in the last situation report as well. Now the GUR, the Ukrainian military intelligence, has taken responsibility. There's also a fire in a gunpowder factory in Kotovsk. eyewitnesses were saying it started with some explosions, so it could be an accident. It could have been either a drone attack or some explosives that were planted there. And there was additionally an attack on a headquarters in Melitopol where 3 officers of the FSB and the Red Rosgvardia were killed there as well. In troop generation terms, we have some news from Moscow and St. Petersburg. Here the Russians are sending out fresh letters to call people to come to the recruitment offices. Usually it's being said to adjust data to make sure that the data is accurate, but it's usually accompanied with claims that they're in the offices, they are going to exert pressure to force the men to sign up contracts to basically mobilize themselves for this war. In the political era, we have news from Hungary. Hungary has refused to sign off on the transfer of 500 million euros in military aid for Ukraine. It is demanding guarantees that Ukrainian companies will not be rated by Ukraine as international supporters of the war. So I guess of Russia side of the war. Before, Ukraine had taken the Hungarian OTP bank off that list, but Hungary is demanding guarantees that this is going to be permanently. So this will be the condition under which Hungary will allow the transfer of 500 million euros into Ukraine. International support is going to be very pleasant news for the Ukrainians. The US have now confirmed that they bought 60 Gepard Cheetah air defense tanks, self-propelled anti-air guns from Jordan. Those are former Dutch ones. That's why you see that radar dish here not in the usual mattress form that we know from the German ones. Those are the Dutch versions that were sold to Jordan, and the US is now buying it back. Jordan makes a nice profit on it. On top, I think they are selling them back for 5 times the price, but still for 100 and something million, 110 million, US are buying them. They are going to be refurbished and sent. This is important because the Gepard has proven itself to be the best weapon, or one of the best weapons for the Ukrainians to take down the cheap Shahid drones, as its shells are far more cheaper than air defense missiles. Thus, it's efficient in taking out low value targets that are still dangerous. At the same time, in the right position, it is very well capable of shooting down cruise missiles as well, even though its range is obviously limited by the fact that it's barreled, that it is self-propelled artillery and not a missile. But this leads to them being mobile and highly efficient in shooting down targets when it comes costs-wise. So far, Ukraine has roughly received 50 German ones. Now they are getting 60 Jordanian ones on top, more than doubling their current inventory, and thus it should strengthen them a lot. Germany has also confirmed that the additional IRIS-T, complete additional IRIS-T system, will arrive in Ukraine until the end of the year. So when the winter campaign of Russia is expected, probably the new IRIS-T system will be able to join the fight and help protect Ukraine's infrastructure. That was it from me for now already. If you enjoyed this report, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment what you think about the current attempts by the West to keep supplying Ukraine. And if you like this report, then subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.